Todd. Hey, congratulations for Chrissy Judy.
Thank you so much and for having me on.
Hey, not a problem, not a problem. It's a wonderful film um, for yourself. So let's ask that obligatory question. What's inspired you? What sparked you to make a Chrissy Judy?
Yeah, so I always get asked this question if the film's autobiographical in any way. So for viewers or for listeners, Chrissy Judy is about two drag queens who are best friends, and what happens when Chrissy decides to leave this drag duo to pursue a romantic relationship, and how that sort of forces Judy to figure out who he is without his best friend by his side. And so while I was never a drag performer, and uh, wasn't either a Chrissy or a Judy. I did start writing this film in 2018 when I left New York after living there for 13 years to pursue a romance with someone in Philadelphia. And it just had me thinking about all of the really incredible friendships that I had in my 20s that helped me grow as a person. And yeah, I wanted to explore, what that is to have those friendships that sort of fall to the wayside after the introduction of a romantic partner.
So essentially, you were kind of the Chrissy in this.
I've been a Chrissy, I've been a Judy, and I think it's interesting, as our audience continues to grow, people who have seen the film always kind of have the same reaction, which is like, I've had this friend, I was a Chrissy, I was a Judy. So I think like um, in different moments of our lives, everyone has sort of experienced both ends of this yin yang relationship.
So then, how did the drag part actually came out for this film? If you were never really involved in that side of the business before.
Yeah, so I guess while wanting to explore this idea of platonic friendships and chosen family in the queer community, I also wanted to talk about what it is to be a queer artist and how hard it is to make queer art for queer people. And I didn't want to write about a writer and I didn't want to write about an actor. So I thought, oh, what's the, queerest art form that we have right now? It's drag. And I think that there's so many elements of uh, an artist's life that fall within drag, whether it's, the performance element or the musical element or even the visual artistic element that I thought could be relatable to a wider audience. And yeah, I thought it would be fun to explore a character who finds their most authentic voice behind this facade of makeup and under a wig and jewels and nails. There's something about drag that I think, we always show it as this very colorful, vibrant thing. And I wanted to take a look behind that to see what the impetus is to do drag.
It's funny, it's because you essentially implying that there is like some kind of facade behind Judy, behind the makeup and so
Oh
on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that there's something about drag that lets people, it gives people an opportunity to fail because, if you're a performer and you are presenting as this character, if the character tells a joke that doesn't land, or if, they sing a song that is flat or doesn't sound good, you as the person can walk away from that character and say, they had a bad night, but you as the person can sort of, um, walk away from that and the failure doesn't have such a harsh sting to it, I guess.
Most excellent. So, what was the research process like for you? Going into this side of things.
So I guess that my experience with drag prior to writing the film was just as a spectator going to shows. And so when I started writing it and knew that, I wanted to write about this drag duo, I had a friend who's a great drag queen, and he took me under his wing. And you know, he did my face for the first time and you know, put me in all the pads and everything for the first time. And then he told me that I needed to go get a job and figure out how to do it on my own if I was really going to adequately write about this. So I started working doing like drag bingo in the Philly scene, which was a lot of fun. And then ultimately I took like I think I was there for like a month or 6 weeks. I worked the door at this club in drag. So yeah, it was a crash course in learning how to, you know, paint my face and you know, how to fix my wig and the type of clothes that made me look you know, uh more presentable as female.
I do have to hand it to you. You have pretty good drag talents yourself,
Thank you.
and if it was a crash course, you learned pretty quickly.
I'm a fast study. I happen to be visually artistically inclined, so you know, painting on a canvas versus painting on yourself, it wasn't easy to pick up right away, but it wasn't impossible once I understood the principles of like how you build the foundation and how you create shapes and then it's just fun, you know?
So in this film, what's the makeup, the costume, was that all you then? I
Yeah.
like for
So
independent films, it's usually
yes.
that way.
So we were working on a micro budget. Initially when the backstory behind the making of this film is that we had a different production crew involved in the fall of 2019. And obviously things with the pandemic, you know, we lost some investors. And so in the spring of 2021 is when we picked back up um, and shot in the summer of 2021. And in doing that, we lost a huge part of our crew. So we were a very COVID friendly set. It was just myself as the director, my brother as our cinematographer, and his wife as our sound mixer. And so, yes, I was doing all the makeup, which basically just entailed me, you know, kind of showing up to set in drag on the days that we were shooting in drag. And then also I did Wyatt Fenner's makeup, Wyatt who plays Chrissy. So it was a good bonding experience. Definitely time consuming, you know, when you're directing a film, the last thing you need to think about is doing your own makeup, but I think it added to the energy and the urgency of the film.
So intentionally, compared to the beginning back in 2018, was the intention for you to basically star in your own film and direct your own film?
So so I wrote this film to act in it. I had been working in New York for like 10 years in the off-Broadway theater scene, and I just wasn't really breaking through in film the way that I thought I could be. And the feedback that I kept getting is like, oh, well, we don't really know where to put you. So I decided to write something to show people where I fit, I guess. So the intention was always to act. And then during the process of writing, I sort of cut my teeth directing some smaller projects. And I think I felt so intimately connected to the story that I had such a clear vision for what I wanted that I knew with such a small budget, it would be best to just execute it myself. So that was the decision to direct. And yes, if we had a larger budget, I probably wouldn't have produced or edited. That came completely out of financial necessity. So hopefully the next project I won't have to worry about those things.
Oh, I mean, you wore so many hats, on this project. What was the greatest challenge, or what did you learn about yourself for this?
Mm. I think for me, the hardest part of the different hats is I guess it's twofold. You know, just setting out and writing something is hard because it's such a solitary process that until you start including other people and listening to actors say it out loud, you're always unsure as to whether or not the story is as good as you think it can be in your head. So just taking the step to write something and put it out in the world is difficult. But then in terms of the process of filmmaking, I think juggling a lot of hats came easy in this scenario because we were such a small crew, and because I had such an incredible connection with my brother. And then on top of that, the other actors involved are just brilliant New York theater actors who I've worked with time and again, and everyone showed up to set with such a deep well of understanding of these characters. I think the hardest part in the filmmaking process was the editing. I had only edited something once before this, and it's an exercise in like removing ego when you're watching yourself on screen for hours and hours and hours. And um, but after a couple days, I got over feeling like, oh, I look terrible here, and then I leaned into thinking like Judy would look terrible in this scene, so it's great, you know.
So in the end, you were your own greatest critic.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to have a little to be able to remove yourself from the experience of creating. And I think I was successful in doing that. I still watch the film and there are things that I would love to change, but I think that the more I talk to other filmmakers, the more I understand that that's just part of the process.
Yeah, I can't imagine on trying to direct yourself, especially when you are carrying the film you most of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what makes it easier is just we live in a digital age, so just being able to watch playback immediately is very helpful. And like I said, my brother is like we had such a shorthand that it was easy to go back and forth and swap hats in between takes, director, actor.
I know you probably answered this question a dozen of times, but tell me about the decision making this film in black and white.
Yeah. So once I started writing it, I knew I wanted it to be in black and white. I think I love black and white films. I think that there's just something like inherently romantic about black and white films that I wanted to juxtapose with this story of friendship. Um, and then I also think there's something really timeless about this story of queer friendships. There's a reference to Dancer from the Dance, which is a really incredible queer novel from the 70s. And it's about these two gay men who are best friends. And so I think I remember reading that book in my 20s and just feeling like it was so current, um, even though it had been written 30, 40 years prior. And when I read the book, I just in my mind saw it in black and white because it felt so timeless. And so I wanted to capture that on screen with Chrissy Judy. We there's the use of some cell phones, and we mentioned social media once, but other than that, we're not cemented in time with politics or pop culture references. And my hope is that, people can watch this 10, 20 years from now, not really know when the film was made because the story of friendship feels so timeless.
Hmm. And it must have been a real challenge, especially the nighttime shoots because of black and white with the shadows and the lighting.
Yeah, it did prove to be very difficult because, like I said, we were a micro budget, so we actually didn't have a lighting kit. So all the lighting is natural lighting. There were certain spaces that we shot in that had spotlights or different performance spaces that gave us a little bit more of a cinematic quality. But then there's a scene at the end on the breakwater, which is like a jetty rock wall that we were just lucky that, 50 yards away, there's a hotel on the beach that was shining floodlights on us that gave this really cool sort of like old Hollywood backlot set feel. So the lighting definitely uh, adds to the mystery of the film and to the mood and the tone. But it wasn't easy, and there were some things that definitely had to be fixed in the editing room with lighting, just so that you could actually see the performances a little bit better, especially in those nighttime scenes.
Here's a question out of the blue. How long did you have to wait to film the animal
Oh,
on the shores, or was that a
yeah.
coincidence?
So I had always written the fox into the script, and every time someone read it, they were like, "Whoa, that's going to be really expensive. You need to get a fox handler and all this stuff." And I had been in Provincetown many times, and there are a lot of foxes in town, and I just kind of had faith that we would get it. And so we had just finished doing the wide shot of that, and I said, "Okay, well, we should probably change the line so that they don't see a fox, but they're talking about a memory of a fox or a memory of seeing a fox." We were okay with that. And literally, as we were setting up that shot, my brother was like, "Guys, there's a fox down the beach. Let's see what he does." And he just turned the camera and saw the fox on the beach. And we did a one of Wyatt's close-ups. And then after his first take, my brother was like, "Guys, the fox is coming up onto the rock." So we just, caught him. It was just perfect timing. And we finished that night at like 2 in the morning, and we were like, "Oh my God, that was fate that came in and, gave us that little guy." And he looks so perfect in the film. And it's just a lovely nod to um the magic of the town and the magic of their friendship in that moment.
That is wonderful. That was a wonderful
Yeah,
shot, by the way.
total luck. Yeah.
Now, with the many hats that you have to do, did you also took care of the choreography and the music for this project too?
Yeah, so luckily the choreography was not something that I had to deal with. Very good friends with Brad Landers, who is the choreographer of Let's Have a Kiki, that famous Scissor Sister song. And so he came in and helped us with the minimal choreography that we had. But the music choices came from two places really. My mom was an opera singer, and my grandfather, her father was a jazz pianist. So I always kind of grew up with that music, and I love the idea of focusing on a drag artist who wanted to harken to this like time gone by. I felt like it really elevated the black and white in the film, and I also thought it was just like a fun, nod to a queer artist trying to do something that even in his own community wasn't really necessarily what people wanted to see or were, looking for. But also being a micro budget film, a lot of that music is in the public domain, so that worked in our favor. um, except for the Diana Ross song at the end. Yeah, so the music was very challenging. We worked with a great script music supervisor who helped us navigate a lot of that. But we did have, I think, two or three drag performances that had multiple options for songs based on what rights we were able to get. So most of the numbers that you see, there's raw footage of a completely different take with a completely different song in that moment. But I think all the songs that we landed on really helped to tell the story and help show Judy's evolution, not only as an artist, but just as a person who's like coming to terms with where they are in life.
That is wonderful. Terrific, song selections for this
Thanks.
film. Now, being a micro budget film, usually micro budget films they only choose like one location, but you chose a lot of places to film this. I want to say, Fire Island,
Mhm.
P-Town, New Jersey. You
New
even went to what,
York, Philadelphia.
York,
What?
and even Pennsylvania, right?
And Philadelphia, yeah.
Wow, that's
I know.
how did you pull that off, or you just managed to just schedule vacations in all those spots?
Well, truthfully, when we set out to make the film we only had $20,000 to make the film, which was, I mean, I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to pull it off, but we somehow magically did. And a lot of that was finding actors who really loved the script. And so most people who came in worked for a fraction of what they should have been paid. Um, and that enabled us the freedom to move around. All of the locations we got for free. So we called in a lot of favors. I like to say that this film was made with Scotch tape and love. And so it enabled us to do as many company moves as we did, but we also didn't shoot consecutively. So we shot for about 10 days in the New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area in June of 2021. So we would do like 2 days on Fire Island, 2 days in New York. Then we'd take a week off and we'd come back and, meet up in Philadelphia. And then we took a 2-month hiatus and shot the third act in Provincetown in August. So we shot for like 6 or 7 days in August to finish the third act. So it just gave us time and space to, work on the film, let the story marinate a little bit, let the characters develop even more. And I think even though it was stressful, it really lends itself to the quality of the film at the end of the day.
It does, absolutely. And you mentioned before that a lot of your cast for this film were people from the theater that you met, or
Yeah.
friends that you knew.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest hurdles for me as like a young theater performer in New York was just having trouble as a gay person getting work because I was either, not flamboyant enough to play certain characters or too gay to play other characters. And I knew a lot of people who sort of were in this weird in between. And we found a lot of work together. But Joey Taranto, who plays Marcus, is someone who I've worked with continually. He and I met in like an on-camera acting class in New York, and just really hit it off right away. Wyatt Fenner, who plays Chrissy, we met doing a reading of a play in New York. Um, and James Tison, who plays Samoa, is now more of a stand-up comedian and they do more film work. But we actually went to NYU together, so we were feral cats together, as they like to say. So yeah, most of the people I knew, and they came to the project with, open arms and excitement, knowing that it was very low budget and not to expect, um, too much of the movie star treatment on set. But they're thrilled and pleased with the success we've had, and it was worth it at the end of the day. A lot of times you do things, for pennies and you never hear about it or see it again. So we're very lucky that audiences have been so receptive to it. And yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
Well, that's why Chrissy Judy is a true art. So what's next after this, Todd?
So I just finished writing my next feature. I would love to be in production in that in the next year or two, but I know how slow moving film can be, especially feature films. And I just acted in a film in the fall with some heavy hitters. It was an amazing experience, totally different from Chrissy Judy. And so I'm excited to see. I think that will be coming out soon. But yeah, there were some Oscar winners in the cast and some Tony winners in the cast, and I felt completely out of place, but very welcomed. And yeah, so I'm excited to see that film come out too.
That's really exciting for you. And
Yeah.
just out of your curiosity, since the production ended, and the movie's released, when was the last time you dressed up in drag just for giggles?
It's been a while. I actually did something right before the holidays. I so I live in Provincetown in Massachusetts. I moved up here during the pandemic, and I was only supposed to be here for 3 months, and then I never left. So I'm still living up here, but I have a great relationship with. We have a really wonderful, small but mighty cinema in town, and they wanted to show a holiday movie, and they said, "Oh, would you host a holiday movie as your drag persona?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I showed White Christmas, and we relished in Bing Crosby and Vera Ellen and Rosemary Clooney and Danny Kaye, and that was the last time I did drag.
Well, that sounds like a whole lot of fun, and um, I'm
It was a hoot.
we shouldn't complain about you living in P Town, Provincetown there.
Oh, no complaints from me. It's a great place to be.
Most excellent. Well, Todd, hey, congratulations for Chrissy Judy. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for speaking to us about it. And you know what? I can't wait to circle back and get into another conversation with you down the road.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you.